Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best day of the week. It's Star Wars Talk Tuesdays, where all we do is talk about our favorite thing in the world, which is, of course, Star Wars, all Star Wars, and nothing but Star Wars. I am your host today. Of course, my name is John Campea. It's an honor and a privilege to have you guys joining me here this week as we talk about a whole bunch of stuff Star Wars. And what a hell of a week. I mean, it was already a pretty big week with the Solo trailers dropping. And now on top of that, we get this news that just came out. I'm sure you guys are following this and you've heard about this, and we'll get to it in just a minute, but the news just came out that the creators of the Game of Thrones television series have just signed on to do a new series of Star Wars films, and we'll get to that in just a second here. Here's how today's show is going to go, guys. I've picked out 4 topics that you guys have sent in to me that you want talked about. How do you get a topic or a question on Star Wars Talk Tuesdays? It's real simple. Just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you put SWTT, that stands for Star Wars Talk Tuesdays. Put SWTT in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep your emails as short as possible. Absolutely the most it can be is 90 words, but try to keep it as short as possible. Because if it's any longer than that, I can't even fit it on the screen, even if I wanted to. So yeah, I mean, look, Lucasfilm shocked us by not only giving us our first Han Solo trailer, which we were expecting, but, and I've mentioned this earlier this week, that I was expecting to get a glimpse of the Han Solo trailer at the Super Bowl, and then the full-length trailer the next day. What we actually ended up getting was 2 entirely different trailers, which is pretty cool. So now, instead of sitting around wondering, why haven't we got a Han Solo trailer yet? We now have 2 of them. So we now have 2 Solo trailers, and I'm sure we're going to get into that a whole bunch. Anyway, guys, after I'm done, the 4 topics you guys have emailed into me, we'll spend the rest of the show just taking your live comments and questions. You can, of course, 2 ways to get those in. One, using the Super Chat, if there's still time after we get through all the Super Chat, and thank you to all you guys who use Super Chat to support this channel. If we still have more time after that, I will go to Twitter as well. So, with that out of the way, let's get to the first emailed in topic of the day. And the first emailed in topic today comes to us from Alyssa Model, who writes, "Hey, I think you meant John. Why do people say no one asked for a Han Solo movie? I have always wanted one, and I know a lot of fans happy to have one. Also, it seems Lawrence Kasdan has been wanting to do a Solo for years. Most movies are made without any fans asking for it." All right, well, thanks a lot for the question, Alyssa. And, you know, no, that's fair. That's fair. Like, when they made Independence Day, nobody asked for Independence Day. They just made it. When they made The Matrix, nobody asked for The Matrix. They just made it. I think when you hear people, and I include myself in this, when you hear somebody like me saying, I never asked for a Han Solo movie, obviously, I don't mean that literally. I mean, because obviously I've never asked for any movie other than a Mystery Men sequel. I would love a Mystery Men sequel. I am officially asking for a Mystery Men sequel. Anyway, that aside. I've never asked for a film before, but what I think most people, including myself, are saying when we say we never asked for one is basically saying, I have never had a desire for one. Now, I think most people are probably like me in this place, or I am like most people, in the sense that, hey, look, if you had left it up to me and asked me, hey, John, should we make a Solo standalone film? I would have said no. But you're making it, so I'm going to be there. I'm interested. It's Star Wars. It's Han Solo. I'm going to be there. And it's either going to be great, or it's going to be okay, or it's going to be terrible. It's going to be whatever it is, but I'm interested. I'll be there. But that doesn't change the fact that if I had my way, I would have rather them try to make something else other than a Solo movie. So when I'm saying I never asked for it, I'm not saying I ever marched around saying don't make it. And none of that. I think what a lot of people are just saying is that, hey, you know what? We didn't really want this. We wanted them to do something else. But hey, it is Star Wars. It's Han Solo. We're interested in. Who knows? Maybe they will crush it and knock it out of the park. Maybe it'll be the greatest Star Wars movie of all time. We just don't know at this point. And maybe it'll be terrible and just a piece of dumpster fire. Maybe. With Ron Howard there, I kind of doubt it's going to be a dumpster fire. But still, we'll just have to see how it plays out. But that's the basics of it. I think when people say that, like me, are saying, I never asked for a Solo movie, what I'm really saying is that, you know, I would have rather them done something else. It wasn't high on my priority list. I much would have rather seen some brand new, fresh story, some Old Republic stuff, something else maybe. But hey, they're doing it. So I'm interested. I'm going to be there. Let's keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Leftovers, who writes, why are people doubting the success of Solo? I even heard one guy in the line at the bank say that Deadpool will make more than Solo. Solo will reach more fans than Rogue One did because everybody knows Han Solo. Also, if you look at the past 3 Star Wars fans, I think you mean films, the past 3 Star Wars films, they have all done better than the last Marvel films. Solo will be the #1 film of 2018. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Leftovers. I respectfully disagree with you on that. I think there are a couple things playing against Solo right now. Number one, again, I think there's everybody knows Han Solo, but there's a large segment of people who, when they think Han Solo, they think Harrison Ford. And unfortunately, there are just some people who will not give anybody else a chance. Movie fandom is actually quite destructive when you base your fandom on principle. Well, Harrison Ford's my Han Solo, so therefore on principle, I refuse to give anything else a chance. That makes no sense. That type of fandom makes no sense whatsoever. Don't get me wrong. If you're somebody who you'd really rather them not do Solo without Harrison Ford, I get that. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't pass judgment on something and not give it a shot, because you may be robbing yourself of a truly great movie. Like, there are a lot of people, a friend of mine who's been like a film historian forever was reminding me that, when they got Roger Moore to be the new Bond, there was a lot of people who just, no way. I mean, if Twitter had been around, the hashtag more not my Bond, or Connery only Bond, hashtag Connery only Bond, that would have been the trending tweet of the thing. But, the internet wasn't around at that time, and we ended up getting another iconic James Bond who delivered some great James Bond films. Yes, I'm sure to a lot of people, they were not interested in seeing any other Bond other than Sean Connery. I'm sure there were people who felt that way. And that's fine. But hopefully they got past their prejudice and decided to give it a shot. And you know what? If people give Solo a shot and they don't like it, fair game. Hey, that's no problem. That's totally fair. I just don't want people to rob themselves of something that could be good and could be great just because they wanted to stamp their feet and go, no, it's not what I want. Well, you're going to have a pretty sheltered, shallow life then, if that's how you live your life. Step outside of the box, give it a shot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And you can go, hey, I hated that movie. Totally fair. But, give it a shot. Because I think, had they not given Roger Moore a shot, who was a totally different James Bond than what Sean Connery gave us, then we would have missed out on some great, iconic James Bond films. A couple of cheesy ones, too, granted. But, yeah, so I really do hope people can stay outside that. Now, that being said, the fact of the matter is there are a lot of people who are pessimistic about the film because of it's not Harrison Ford. I get it. There are people who are pessimistic about the film because maybe they didn't like The Last Jedi. I get it. Sure. Because if you're somebody who didn't like The Last Jedi, of course your enthusiasm for the next Star Wars film, regardless of what it is, your enthusiasm is going to be tempered a bit. That's natural. Totally understandable. I get it. So I think Disney is being realistic and they understand, look, the Solo film is not going to have some of the more natural advantages that a lot of the other Star Wars films have had. People are going to be pessimistic about it not being Ford. Some people who didn't like The Last Jedi might have their enthusiasm tempered because they weren't so thrilled with The Last Jedi. That's all understandable. And it's because of that. And you're looking at Deadpool. And by the way, I'm also one of the people who I think Deadpool will make more money than Solo. I do. I'm not necessarily saying Deadpool's going to be better than Solo. I'm just saying with the momentum that Deadpool has going for it, I think it stands a pretty good chance of making more money. I think more people might rush out to see that than Solo. Not that Solo's going to do bad, but hey, I happen to think that. And I think you just got to take all those factors into consideration. Now look, anything can happen. Solo comes out, people are in awe and wonder at it. They can't believe how good it is. It's one of the best things ever done, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that changes everything. But we're just going to have to wait till we get there. But I think there are a bunch of people out there who don't think Solo is going to be, and I certainly don't think Solo is going to be the #1 film of the year. Actually, no chance. No chance. I mean, this is the year with Avengers Infinity War. against a solo standalone film, I don't think it has any chance. Who knows? Maybe the stranger things have happened. Maybe you'll be right. Who would have predicted that Jurassic World was going to make as much money as it did? Maybe it'll turn out that way. I just don't think it will. But hey, again, all we can do at this point is keep our fingers crossed and let's see how it turns out. All right, let's move on now to the next one. The next one comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Jim Munson. Thank you for being a Patreon supporter, Jim. And Jim Munson writes, "It seemed to me that Grand Admiral Thrawn in the book is very different from the version in Rebels. With a new Thrawn novel on the way and the final Rebels season as well, do you think he will take a dark turn in the book, or will he see the light in Rebels?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And that is something to me. I mean, the Thrawn book is good. I like the Thrawn novel. I do. I enjoyed it. It wasn't one of the better ones. It was sluggish through a good part of it. Whenever the story wasn't on Thrawn and was rather on that female character who becomes a governor, I'm forgetting her name at this point. It just felt useless and slow. But yeah, one of the other big question marks I had after reading the Thrawn novel was like, he's essentially a good guy. I mean, his motives are pretty much all real. He's very honest. He tries to essentially do the right thing. He has legitimate close friendships, at least with one guy. I mean, it doesn't jive with the Thrawn that we see in Star Wars Rebels. It seems very inconsistent, which is another knock for me on the whole novels being actual canon. Look, I know they call the novels canon, but I'll be honest with you, I'm at the point now that I do not consider the novels canon. And I love the novels, like several of them. I love Tarkin. I love Lords of the Sith. I loved Lost Stars. I really like Bloodlines. I like Thrawn. I quite enjoyed the Phasma novel, but at this point, I find so many inconsistencies between the novels and the movies that as a fan, and I know they are canon, but I'm just saying I just don't consider them canon anymore. I just don't look at them that way. I look at them as separate things from, sorry, my phone's going off. I just look at them as separate things from the movies themselves. But that's just me. But yeah, one of the things that you really get, especially in the Thrawn thing, is the difference between the characters. It's the difference between, who Thrawn is in the book and who Thrawn is in the show. And maybe in the new novel, they'll show us something that gives him a complete dark turn, but it's not just a turn. It has to be something that will totally convince us that he completely changes his personality, like completely. Because again, that Thrawn in Rebels is not the same Thrawn in the novel. So we'll have to see what they do with the new book and what direction they go. Like I said, I thought the Thrawn book was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Not nearly as good as some of the other ones I mentioned, but we'll see what they do in the new one. All right, final question of the day. And this one comes to us from Martin Jeffries, who sent this to me just a little earlier today. He said, "Did you hear that the creators of Game of Thrones, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, have signed on to create a new series of Star Wars films? It says they'll be separate from the saga and the Rian Johnson films. With this many films, is there any way they don't go to 2 films per year?" All right. Yeah, thanks a lot for sending that in, Martin. And yes, that's the story of the day. I mean, I thought today was going to be dominated by us talking about the Solo trailer. And then this news drops. So, Benioff and Weiss, the creators of the Game of Thrones show, they've now signed on to write and produce a brand new series. They're calling it a series of Star Wars films. And they were very quick to point out that these new films are completely separate from the saga and separate from Rian Johnson's films. Now, this is important, and here's why. Now, I know this reflects badly on the fandom, but if they didn't specify that these are separate from the Rian Johnson films, if they didn't put that in the press release, you know what everybody would have made up. They fired Rian Johnson and they're replacing Rian Johnson. That's what they would have done. So I think it was very prudent for the folks at Lucasfilm in their press release to specify it is separate from the saga and separate from the films that Rian Johnson is developing for us. So that kills that rumor right away. But look, it's so funny because one of the things that guys like me have been saying for a while is that I feel with them, one of the reasons they're launching this Disney streaming service, and you guys have heard me say this, is that I feel that they think they can make their own Star Wars version of Game of Thrones, right? That they feel they have the characters, they feel they have the universe, they feel they have the worlds, that they could create their own version of Game of Thrones. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to geek you all out here for a second. We're going to 6th level geek here. In the West End game, Star Wars the role-playing game, show of hands, how many of you guys played the Star Wars role-playing game by West End Games, the D6 system? Anyway, it's the system that you see me, that you see me holding up here in the book. That book is a Star Wars, that book you see in my hand, that's a Star Wars D6 role-playing game system. Still my favorite role-playing game system of all time. So anyway, where's I going with that? Oh yeah, in that system, they actually put out an expansion of the system, and it's called Lords of the Expanse. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard of this, but it was called Lords of the Expanse. And what the Lords of the Expanse was an addition to the game that opened up a whole new area of the Star Wars universe that they called the Expanse, that went out beyond the Outer Rim. That the Empire still ruled, but really it was more self-governed. The Empire had a presence, they technically ruled it, but they allowed them to self-govern. And they governed by a system, by a caste system with noble houses. And noble houses ruled the universe. And there were all these different noble houses and different levels of nobility that you could have and all that kind of stuff. Sounds kind of Game of Thrones-ish, doesn't it? But this was out long before Game of Thrones. And, I mean, look, I'm not saying that they are bringing on the Game of Thrones creators to create a Star Wars Game of Thrones. I'm not saying that. But I have to admit, you'd have to be asleep not to let your imagination run a little bit. And the way my imagination was running was I instantly went to thinking about Lords of the Expanse in the Star Wars role-playing game system. And you could totally introduce that, and it would be fascinating. I remember when they released Lords of the Expanse, I was the game master at the time for my group, and that's all I played. That's all. The only games I ran for 2 years was Lords of the Expanse games, which was fantastic, and I love that world. Anyway, so look, could this be a play for the streaming service? Because you also asked the question, could this mean that they have to go to 2 films a year? Let's not take out the possibility that these new films and these new stories that they're developing, they could be developing theoretically for the streaming service. Maybe this will go straight to streaming. Maybe this is going to be one of the things that they use to really give an impact to the launch of the streaming service. I don't really know for sure. But it does strike me that if they continue on with saga films, and we've already heard Kathleen Kennedy say they're going to do, after episode 9, they're doing more stories with Rey, Poe, and Finn, and they're still doing more of those stories, and that Rian Johnson's got his new films coming that aren't connected to Rey, Poe, and Finn, and now we've got these guys creating a new series of films. It does seem to me that if they all are destined for the big screen and not the streaming service, it seems to me they might be in a position that they do need to look at going to 2 films a year. I mean, that's how it strikes me at any rate. I mean, maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but it kind of seems like the way they would need to go with it. I'm not 100% sure. I'm dying to know what you guys think about that. Do you think they're going to head in that direction? Jump into the comments section and let me know. And I'm sure you guys have a lot to say about all this kind of stuff, so we are going to go over to the live questions. But before we go into the live question, guys, indulge me for a second while I do my admittedly shameless plug for the thing that keeps the lights on around here, my Patreon campaign. Check this out. I'll be back in 1 minute. For those of you who have followed me for any period of time, you guys know that I made the decision recently to leave the corporate overlords. I no longer wanted to work for corporations. I wanted to be an independent content creator. And the only way I've been able to do that is by the support of my Patreon supporters. So what I would like to do is to ask you guys who watch my shows, who spend any amount of time with me every single month, to consider going over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what exactly does it mean to be a Patreon supporter of mine? What does being a Patreon supporter do for helping to make sure that shows like this one and all the other shows I do here on my channel can actually be produced? And on top of that, what benefits are there to being a Patreon supporter? And maybe if you guys can check that out, if you decide you want to be one of my Patreon supporters, that would be awesome. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just happy that you guys have decided to be here today and be a fellow movie fan and join us in the conversation. So go and check out the website, see if you want to become a Patreon supporter. And now let's get back. All right, and a special thank you to all of you guys who are already Patreon supporters. You guys are the reason this whole channel exists. Thank you so much for your support, guys. All right, with that out of the way, let's jump over to the live questions you guys have been sending in. And we start off this one with James Paul Stalmuck, who writes, "Hey, John, do you think some people would have reacted the same way, like Solo, to a new actor playing Obi-Wan or any other original character if the prequels were coming out today with everyone having a voice on the internet?" I think the Obi-Wan scenario is a little bit different because, and I do believe this does make a difference in people's minds, is because when they made the prequels, I mean, I believe Alec Guinness had already passed away. So there was no choice. I mean, there are still people out there who believe, I don't care if it's a young Solo movie, still put Harrison Ford in it. I don't know what they're thinking, but there are still a lot of people who do that. I think that makes a big difference in some people's minds about that. Nobody would have asked for David Prowse to come back and play young Anakin Skywalker. So, no, I don't think it would have been the same scenario. I really don't, because the context was different. It was a different set of circumstances. So I really don't think that would be a thing. Now, obviously, there would have been some people, had the internet and Twitter and everything been as prevalent when the prequels were coming out and existed like they do today, yes, there would have been people very vocal on, the only Obi-Wan Kenobi is Alec Guinness. Nobody else. How dare you? That's disrespectful to Alec Guinness to have somebody else play Obi-Wan. I'm sure you would have had a bunch of people doing that, yes. But I still think they would have moved forward. And there wouldn't have been as much people doing it because, again, the context is different. Sir Guinness had passed. It was a different era. All this kind of stuff. Whereas today, we literally just had a movie with Harrison Ford 2 years ago. We literally just saw Harrison Ford playing Han Solo 2 years ago. So it's a real big difference in context, right? So it's a really valid question, James, but because of the different context, because of the different scenarios, because of the fact that Sir Alex had passed, because of the fact that we just saw Han Solo being played by Harrison Ford 2 years ago, it does make it a little bit different, and it kind of ramps up the triggeredness of some people, and I get that. It's kind of understandable at that level. But yeah, everybody likes to have a voice on the internet. It is the best and the worst thing about the internet. It is that everybody has a voice. And that is both the worst and the best thing about it. And we got to deal with both. All right, thanks a lot for the question, James, man. Ben writes, could they be making movies for their streaming service? Well, yeah, actually, as I just mentioned, I do think that's a possibility. It is absolutely a possibility. Depends how big their vision is for these new movies. Because if they think these movies could be huge, then you can make tons more money by putting them in theaters. But, I mean, I think it's something we have to hold on to. I do think it's interesting that I didn't see anything in the press release that specified whether these were going to be big screen movies or for the streaming service. They didn't specify anything. So I think we're going to be left to speculate about that until they get... I'm guessing within the next 6 months we'll know. They'll let us know that these are going to be a new, big screen saga films, or whether it's going to be for the streaming service. We'll know soon enough, but I do think that is a possibility. Ben also writes, over under 60% they're doing Old Republic. That these guys are doing New Republic? The Game of Thrones guys, I'll take the under on that. That's a little bit of a high number for me. So I'll take the under that the films these guys are developing will be Old Republic. But you never know. It would be cool. Combine Old Republic with Lords of the Expanse with the Game of Thrones creators. Whee! It could be amazing. All right. Gareth Tucson writes, The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and The Last Jedi have provided great lightsaber moments that fit the story in the new movies. Do we need a classic duel now? Oh, I don't know what we need. I know I would love to see a big, epic, classic lightsaber battle in Episode 9. I would like to see that. Now, if they come up with something else that gives us a great movie that doesn't include a lightsaber battle, that's fine. Okay, I'll live with that. But I certainly would like to see that. I mean, if I had my ways, Luke is still alive. You guys know I have a theory that Luke might actually still be alive. Right? And in the movie, he just disappears. I think this is a possibility. Now, don't get me wrong. If I had to put $10 on it, Luke is dead. Okay, yes. If you push me on, say no, John, just right now, is Luke alive or dead? Okay, yes, he's dead. I just think there's a chance he's alive. And anyway, if I had my way, of course, Luke, it comes back. He makes a triumphant return and takes out like 75 Sith Lords in an epic lightsaber duel. But I'll settle for one just between Rey, a really great fight between Rey and Kylo. But whatever they want to do is fine with me. But yes, I would love to see an epic lightsaber fight, man. Let's see. Adam Griffin writes, the press release says a quote-unquote series of films. They were very specific with Ryan doing a trilogy. My line for you, over or under 3.5 films for Benioff and Weiss. Well, look, let's put it this way. When you start a relationship like this, like Lucasfilm is starting with these Game of Thrones creators, you hope it turns out great, and you hope to be making movies together, that everybody's successful, and you hope it goes on for 25 films. But hope doesn't get you very far if your first movie is a train wreck, right? Like, they made the first Aragon movie. I know I keep going back to that a lot, but they made that first Aragon movie. It was supposed to be a trilogy. But the first film was a dumpster fire train wreck. People didn't go see it, and so they canceled it. Even James Cameron is saying, yeah, we're planning on doing 4 Avatar sequels, but, you know, they're making the first 2 right now. But if the first 2 come out and they're not successful, we're not going to be doing the final 2. So it's difficult to say. I'll say this. I'll say that their plan is for over 3.5 films. That's the plan. But like Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan till you get punched in the mouth. And if the first one they do comes out and they get punched in the mouth by the critics and fans in the box office, there ain't going to be over 3.5. But if we're talking about what's their plan, I'm going to guess the plan is for over 3.5. I'll take the over. I like that number, 3.5. I'll take the over on it. Gareth Tucson writes, after seeing the Solo trailers, what will happen? Sabacc, Battle of Tanab, Han Chewie's first meeting, a Kessel Run. Falcon looks to suggest that it's Lando's. Well, yeah, I mean, clearly that's Lando's ship. And we all know the lore that Han gets the ship from Lando. He wins it from him fair and square. So we know he gets the ship from Lando. The movie will start with Lando being the owner of the ship for sure. I'm not convinced 100% that Han wins the ship from him by the end of the film. I'm not 100% certain that's the case. It probably is, but I'm not 100% certain. We'll definitely see a game of Sabacc. I think we saw a glimpse of a game of Sabacc in the trailer. Battle of Tanab, don't think so. Don't think we're going to see that. That felt to me like it'd be a little bit more further in time. Chewie and Han's first meeting, yes, I do believe we're going to see that. And Kessel Run, not sure. Because if I'm right, and I might not be right, but if I'm right and we're not going to see the Falcon change hands yet, then it seems to me that when Han does the Kessel Run, he already owns the Falcon. Again, that's just a lot of speculation on my part. I don't know that for sure, and I could totally be wrong on that. And I can totally have my mind changed too. But if I'm right about him not having the ship, then the Kessel Run seems unlikely. Maybe one name writes, hey John, I've been sick and bedridden for the last few days, but I had to crawl out of bed for the best day of the week. I hope you feel better, man. I know, like over the Christmas break, man, when I was on vacation, I got hit like a truck in the face with something, and I ended up in the hospital. You guys saw me. I posted some pictures on my social media. Me in the hospital. It was just brutal, and I still have the cough. You can tell the cough's getting better, right? Like, I have to clear my throat once in a while. Maybe a couple of times I cough through the show, but I feel like I'm almost there. Almost there. I feel like I'm almost there. Oh, with the cough. I hope you recover a lot faster than I did, maybe one. And thank you for getting out of bed and joining us today, dude. That one, Rand, oh my guy, okay, writes, do you think there'll be a cheesy love triangle between Rey, Finn, and Rose in episode 9? I sure hope not. I don't know. Look, just because you have a story where 2 characters are interested in the same character, that doesn't necessarily mean they're setting up a love triangle. You also then have to have the solo character, no pun intended, the solo character who is legitimately interested in both of the parties who are interested in him, and there's a struggle. But nah, I mean, it seemed to me, and like maybe I'm reading into it, but it seemed to me that something changed in Rey in her outlook towards Finn from the end of The Force Awakens to the end of The Last Jedi. It seems to me that when Rey was looking at Finn in The Force Awakens, or in The Last Jedi, I mean, it seems to me something had changed. Now, maybe it's because it's the classic girl thing, right? I'm not interested in this guy, and then all of a sudden another girl's interested in him. Wait a minute, I'm interested in this guy. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. But they might be setting something up. I'm just not sure. I just doubt they're going to spend much time on an actual love triangle story. They might say two people are interested in the same person, but that doesn't mean they're doing a love triangle story. So I think it's pretty low that they're actually going to delve into a love triangle story, per se. All right. Chris Martin writes, I have read the entire Thrawn trilogy. Which book would you recommend next? Last thing, have you read the Kenobi Legends book? I didn't read the Kenobi Legends book. Some of the Legends book got so ridiculous that ultimately I gave up on the Legends books, to be honest with you, because they were so all over the place. I mean, I just checked out when they killed Chewie by hitting him with a moon. That's just when I'm like, okay, I'm out. I mean, it just got so silly and ridiculous and so inconsistent with each other and all that kind of stuff. It just became hard to follow, and I just kind of gave up on it. And I always knew it was never really canon. Like, I always knew that. Lucasfilm was always pretty clear about that. So I kind of ditched on, so I didn't read those novels. If you're done with the Thrawn trilogy, which are by far the best Legend novels, is the Thrawn trilogy. If you haven't seen those yet, like Last Command and all that kind of crap, read those novels. Even though they're not canon, read them. They're really good. I keep coming back to the same recommendations. Lords of the Sith. If you're not a Star Wars novel reader yet, I suggest starting with Lost Stars, because it's most plugged into the original trilogy. But if you're a seasoned vet of reading Star Wars novels, like apparently you are, Chris, I go straight for Lords of the Sith. Lords of the Sith is, other than the Thrawn trilogy, I think my favorite book. Favorite Star Wars novel ever done. Chris Martin also writes, favorite expanded universe character? Probably Mara Jade. Yeah, I just thought the whole setup with her, like, take away the romance with Luke Skywalker and all that kind of stuff. I just thought Mara Jade was a pretty cool character. Maybe One Name writes, is Episode 9 still supposed to be coming out in December of 2019? I don't want to wait almost 2 years for another Star Wars film. I need my Force fix. Yep, December 2019. And really, I mean, that seems like it's really far away, but I mean, they haven't even started shooting this new movie yet. And I don't think they're going to be starting shooting for a little while still. So that movie is a ways off. We're going to have our longest wait for a new Star Wars movie since The Force Awakens came out. We only had to wait a year for we only had to wait a year for Rogue One. Then we only had to wait a year for Episode 8. And then we only had to wait like 4 or 5 months for Solo. And now we're going to have to wait like 18 months, 19 months, something silly like that. Which sucks. Hopefully that'll never happen again, that we have to wait this long in between films. But yep, December 2019. I don't think they're going to budge off that date either. Sujith writes, hey John, Alden Ehrenreich is charming as Solo with what I've seen so far, in my opinion. Cautiously excited. Oh, I'm glad to hear you say that, man. Look, I still don't know if he's going to be a great Solo or not. I still don't know. The trailers aren't going to tell us. We're going to have to see him in context playing the character for 15, 20 minutes before we really start to know. I think he's got a damn good chance at it because I think he's a great actor. We're just going to have to wait. And I like what I saw in the trailers. I did. I liked what I saw in the trailers, but even I can't be 100% convinced until we get further into the film and really get a better idea. But I'm glad you liked him, man. All right. Prince JP4321 writes, I say give Dave Filoni a shot at a Star Wars movie. I don't know if that I'm with you on that, to be honest with you. I think I would rather see Dave Filoni actually direct a small budget live action film. I need Dave Filoni to show me, because honestly, I did not like Clone Wars. While I am a fan of Rebels, it's sometimes hit or miss for me. So I'm a fan of Dave Filoni, yes, but I don't just hand him a Star Wars movie. What I would love to see is Disney, because every once in a while Disney puts out these low, like $1 Million Arm and movies like that. Every once in a while, or Queen of Katwe, with Lupita Nyong'o, which was a fantastic movie. But if you haven't seen Queen of Katwe, David Oyelowo, Lupita Nyong'o, it's amazing. Came out just a couple of years ago. It's fantastic. But every once in a while, Disney puts out these really lower budget, really nice human films, right? I would love to see Disney hand Dave Filoni one of these low budget, character driven movies, and let's see what he can do with live action and real human characters and real human drama. Let's see what he can do. Then, if he shows us he can make a good live action movie, then hand him a Star Wars film. I honestly don't like the idea of just hand out a Star Wars film to a guy who's never done a live action film before of any kind. So why not let him cut his teeth, give him one of those small budget Disney movies that they might have upcoming, and say, hey, why don't we give this one to Dave Filoni? Let him direct this one. And then let's see what he's got. And if it turns out he can't direct live action, then phew, we dodged a bullet and without handing him a Star Wars movie. But if he shows he can do it well, then when he does a Star Wars movie, he'll only be better because he's already got some experience doing a live action film. So I'll admit, while it's very popular in Star Wars fandom to say, give Dave Filoni a movie, I've never been on that train. I'm like, let's give Dave Filoni a chance first with a small budget film. Let's see him tell a story. Let's see him tell a story with live action characters and see if he can bring it home. And if he can, then he'll be all the better now with that experience doing a Star Wars movie. I just think they need to test him first. I really do. I think you need to test him out first. I Am Blue writes, The Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars film. I've heard a number of people say, it's not mine, but I've heard a number of people say that. As someone who's adopted, I'm moved to tears by Rey's journey in finding a family and her strength against Kylo. I love that stuff. Obviously, I'm not adopted. I cannot relate to the level that you can relate with the character, obviously. But yeah, I really enjoyed the film. To me, I have my issues with The Last Jedi. But I really enjoy the film. I like it a lot. It's not as good as the original trilogy, in my opinion. But you're right. Some of the things I really did appreciate was these characters of Rey. And I'm really confused when I hear people who didn't like the fact that Rey's parents were nobody of consequence. To me, that deepens the character. That gives me so many more emotional layers to that character than she's the daughter of a queen. Like, so many people were looking for, no, she's got to be a princess. Like every other fucking formulaic movie ever done like this. She's got to be the daughter of some prince or princess or king or queen or master Jedi. She's got to be, no. That's the beautiful thing about the Force, man, is that it put a nobody in the galaxy, ditched as a child, from nobody parents, in the roughest of survival circumstances, and she's elevated to this, and that's who the Force is working through. I love that. To me, that did so much more for the narrative than if they had crapped and cheaped out and gone with, oh, she's the daughter of a queen. Okay, whoa, never seen that before. Oh, she's the daughter of a great Jedi. Oh, yeah, never seen that before. That's never been done. Like, I really prefer them doing this. I thought it was by far the best thing, and I agree. I think that gives more emotional depth to the character. That's just my opinion. You may feel differently in that school, but that's just my opinion. Okay. Andre writes, so John, soon we're going to have trilogies and duologies outside of the main saga. How they should call them? Episodes, chapters, or something else? That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter. I don't care if they call something a saga, if they call something episodes, or if they call something a series. I really don't care. Like, here's the thing. Doctor Strange comes out. They don't call it Marvel Cinematic Universe Series Episode 7, Doctor Strange. No, they just call it Doctor Strange. Thor 2 comes out, and they don't call it Marvel Cinematic Universe Episode 91, subsection 4. No, they just call it Thor 2. So there's no reason to me that you can't just do the same thing with the Star Wars movies. If some movie comes out and it's about Gablok the Bounty Hunter, just call it Gablok the Bounty Hunter, Star Wars, Gablok the Bounty Hunter. There. You don't have to call it series. You don't have to call whatever, and then call the next movie whatever you're going to call it. I don't really see all that much importance attached to it, but it is an interesting question. Chris Martin writes, have you seen the Charlie Rose interview with George Lucas after The Force Awakens? Honestly, I loved it. Charlie can kind of be an abrasive interviewer. I did not. I heard about it. I never watched the interview myself. A bunch of people have told me I should check it out. Maybe I should. It's probably on YouTube, so I'll probably go check that out. So, but thanks for bringing it up, Chris. Now you guys know. Jump on YouTube, see if you can find that interview. Maybe One Name writes, whatever happened to the Boba Fett movie that Josh Trank was going to direct? Did it get canned completely, or is there still a chance we could see a version of it? I think it got canned completely, and I really hope it got canned completely. I have no desire to see... It's not only that I'm just not asking for a Boba Fett movie, I have no desire for them to make a Boba Fett movie, to be really, really honest with you. Because, look, part of what makes Boba Fett so incredibly cool is the mystery around the character. The stuff we don't know about him. That's what makes him intriguing. That's what makes him... We don't know... I mean, the prequels showed us his face, but we don't know what his face looks like now. Well, we have an idea. But still, the mask never came off. He barely spoke. He was shrouded in mystery, and that's part of what makes him one of the best and most beloved Star Wars characters of all time. So what should we do? Let's take away the shroud of mystery. I just don't get it. I don't get how that was ever even a thought, that they thought they should make a Boba Fett movie. I don't want a Boba Fett movie. I think it would be a bad idea. It will strip away from one of the greatest characters of all time, the thing that makes him one of the greatest characters of all time, which is the shroud of mystery surrounding him. Don't piss on that. So I don't know if they still have it on their books, but I'll be honest with you, I really hope they never touch it. I really, really hope they never touch it. The Jasmine Illustrator, I love that name. The Jasmine Illustrator writes, hi, John. The art that goes into Star Wars is so important. It creates its iconic look. What is your favorite artwork of Star Wars? Well, I mean, I've collected over the years a lot of the art of Phantom Menace. The art of this. I mean, I don't know. To me, one of the things that always impressed me most is the cityscapes. The uniqueness that they usually bring to their various worlds and their cityscapes. Whether you're talking about Coruscant, which is breathtaking to me. The design of Coruscant is just gorgeous and beautiful and everything I always kind of imagined it would be. The design of Theed was just fantastic on Naboo, the capital city on Naboo. Just gorgeous and beautiful. Even the damn Gungan's underwater city, to me, is breathtaking. So I think, to me, the one that always makes me catch my breath the most is the city landscape artwork that they do. They've always done such a great job of that. Chris Martin writes, I wish we could get the complete scores from the prequels. I absolutely love them. Can you not? I mean, it's interesting. Can we not get the complete scores from the prequels? Do they not exist? If so, that's something I've never heard, to be honest with you. That's a new one to me. I've never heard that. Guys, jump into the comments section and give me some information on that. I did not know you couldn't get the complete scores for it. Maybe One Name writes, my favorite thing about Star Wars is all the different starship designs. What is your favorite Star Wars ship? Mine is Slave One. Slave One's really cool. I even like, in the prequels, the Queen's ship in Episode 1. They're so sleek, like very Naboo-ish. Nubian, very nice. Yeah, I thought that looked really cool, but honestly, it's the Star Destroyers. Star Destroyers, to me, are the coolest ships ever created in sci-fi. A close second to me would be Battlestar Galactica, but the Star Destroyers. Like, I like the Mon Cal battleships as well. The X-Wing fighters, obviously, are iconic and all that kind of stuff. I've always had a thing for the B-Wings. I think the B-Wings are really cool, but... yeah, man, the Star Destroyers, they're the ones to me that really that I get excited to see. And that just happened, of course, again in the Solo trailer, because that Star Destroyer coming through that cloud, man. It's like, oh, I just get goosebumps. It's so cool. Justin, oh, I lost Justin. Where did he go? Where did Justin go? Ah, there we go. And by the way, guys, I should have said this before. I'm not going to be able to get to all the questions we have here, but if you've not sent in a super chat, please no more super chats. I should have said that like 10 minutes ago. Justin Gutterman writes, the latest Vader comic run is making it clear that he is hunting down the Jedi. They say canon is 100% everything, so why hasn't Vader hunted Kanan and Ezra down more and been a larger presence in the show? Dude, this is getting back to exactly what I was talking about a little bit earlier. It's becoming canon schmanon. Just, you have so many outlets and you're trying to say they're all consistent with each other, and we've already seen this facade of canon cracking. And that's why, look, I stopped reading the comics. To me, I just got sick of paying $5 for something that literally took me 7 minutes to read. That's not a good dollar to minute of entertainment value to me. So I stopped reading them. And I mean, I've picked up collections. Like I picked up the Vader Down collection, and I'll probably pick up collections later on, but I'm just not reading. Why are they doing this in canon, blah, blah, blah. To me, it just brings up the bigger issue that I don't think this whole thing that everything is canon can stand. It just can't. You're doing too much. You're putting out too much content for it to possibly always be consistent with itself. And then start coming the excuses. And then starts coming the little asterisks. Well, it's canon as long as this happens. Well, wait a minute. No. Canon is either canon or it's not. There's no asterisks in canon. It's either canon or it's not. And it starts with little asterisks. And then it starts with, well, yeah, except in this type of a situation. And we're already seeing that happen. So I just don't see the facade of canon lasting much longer, to be honest with you. So I can't even address your question because I just think their whole canon thing is becoming a problem. And I think they just need to get over it and figure out a solution to it. Fox Mulder writes, chances of JJ adding to Luke's story with a flashback showing him with Mara. Nah. I mean, I'll finish reading your question. She could have died in Kylo's temple attack. Can't wait for Mova to join. Mova's not joining. Let's be clear that I love Ashley Mova. I'm a huge Ashley Mova fan. I'm the one who hired her, of course, but no, she's not going to be joining me over here. Chances of JJ adding, no. There's not going to be any Mara Jade. There's not going to be any Mara Jade, so I'll take the 0. I'm not even going to take 1% or 2%. I'm going to take the absolute 0 on that. There's nothing to suggest that Luke broke the Jedi code of not having a significant other. There's nothing to suggest that he did that. And as a matter of fact, he saw what happened when a Jedi by the name of Anakin Skywalker did break that rule and got married, and it was that connection, that attachment, that led him ultimately to turning to Darth Vader and caused the genocide of billions in the galaxy. Luke had that really fresh in his mind. There's no way. No way. I just don't see any chance of that happening. Sujith writes, I would like to think that every Jedi taps into the Force in different ways and picks up difference in unique skills. In that context, Luke's Force projection could be his party trick he developed with years of practice. Well, Rian Johnson pointed out that a lot of the stuff that Luke does in The Last Jedi can actually be found, the traces of it can be found in The Jedi Path, the book. And Rian Johnson put out a series of social media tweets pointing that out and a lot of things there. Look, Rebels also suggests the idea that certain Jedi will have certain specific skills, like Ezra has this ability to force communicate with animals. And that's something that's kind of different from what Kanan's able to do. So this whole notion that Jedi each can have some unique talents, it's something they've already kind of introduced into it. And is this whole Force projection thing a thing that's unique to Luke, where he can physically manifest himself across the galaxy, which is a little bit different from what Snoke did with Kylo and Rey, just letting them vision each other and see each other. Luke actually physically projected himself across the galaxy. That was kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy. But it is consistent with the notion that each Jedi could theoretically have some unique powers. We'll have to see what J.J. Abrams does with that in Episode 9, if anything. Chris Martin writes, John, do you have any Star Wars hot? I can visually see one right there. There's my Boba Fett right there. Hello, Boba Fett. There's a box of another Boba Fett hot toy. I have an Obi-Wan one packed away. Then, of course, I obviously have a lot of hot toys and some smaller scale figures that you see there. But yeah, I got a couple of Star Wars hot toys. Andre D writes, a possibility R2 has Luke's green lightsaber and will launch it to Rey at some point in Episode 9 like he did for Luke in Return of the Jedi. I don't think so. I think Luke, look, if it's any indication, when Luke got his original lightsaber and just tossed it because he's so committed to putting the Jedi stuff behind him, for them to be consistent with that, Luke had to have gotten rid of that green lightsaber. And so I think he got rid of it. Maybe he has it buried away somewhere. Maybe he'll dig it up. I don't know what will happen. But I think the chances are pretty... The scenario, Andre, that you're painting is pretty low. Plus, I think it would come across a little forced. To be no pun intended. I think it would come across a little bit forced if they did that. A little bit too much on the nose for what they did in Jedi. But yeah, I'm going to guess that that's probably not the case. Ben Rayner writes, I'm pumped for this new trilogy. These guys make cinematic television shows, Battle of the Bastards. To think of that in Star Wars terms, I get pumped. Hey, look, I think every Star Wars fan should be excited about this. Does it automatically mean it's going to be good? Nope. It could be terrible. But I think the chances are pretty high. They took some really solid source material, but lots of people take solid source material and make crappy entertainment out of it. These guys took the source material and made cinematic television, man. Some of the best television ever made. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see what they can do once they get into the Star Wars playground for sure. Third Man writes, given the new look of the Falcon, do you think that the ship experiences major damage in the film, giving it a permanent brown look? Maybe he does the Kessel Run in an insane way with gas mask, damages the ship. I don't know. Like, remember, in the original trilogy, Han says, I made some very special modifications myself. So, in the way that the Falcon looks now, it doesn't look damaged. It just looks, modified. So, I don't know that the Falcon goes through, like, obviously, there's no indent where the nose is. It's the two protruding prongs, right, at the end of the Falcon. Whereas in the Solo trailer, there's no indent. It's just one solid piece. I don't think like a big meteorite hits it and knocks it like that and then it stays that way. No, I think Han modifies it. So I kind of think, Third Man, that that Han just modifies it and changes it. Maybe he does it specifically for the Kessel Run. I mean, I don't know for sure. But obviously, when we get around to seeing the Millennium Falcon for the first time in Star Wars A New Hope, it's a significantly older ship now. But I don't think any of the stuff that we're going to see is a result of damage. I think it's just going to be a result of Han tinkering with it to maybe do the Kessel Run. And maybe that's what his motivation is for doing his modifications. We're just going to have to wait and see. Thanks a lot for the question, man. It's a good one. Minnesota writes, what are you interested in most so far from the Han Solo teaser and trailer? I think the dynamic between Han and Lando, which is interesting because we didn't see any of it in the trailer, and yet that's what I'm really excited to see. You know, it's funny, a lot of people saying, I'm not buying Alden Ehrenreich as Solo, but they're going, oh my God, Gambino, Donald Glover is so great as Lando. He didn't even say a thing. I'm a big Donald Glover fan. You guys know this. But he didn't say a word in that trailer. And everybody's freaking out how great Donald Glover is as Lando. He didn't even say anything. He didn't say a word. I think that, like Alden Ehrenreich, I think the jury's a little bit out on Gambino and see how he does this. He certainly looks cool, but looking right means nothing. We'll just have to see how that goes. Let's see. Maybe one name says, if we see the Kessel Run in Solo, do you think they'll make it in 12 or 14 parsecs? He'll do it in 12. He won't get it. Or maybe it'll be 13 and he just exaggerates and says 12. Caden Staub writes, Revan or Starkiller, if one had to become canon, Revan. I'll go Revan on that. Starkiller, you just would have to change way too much about what we know about Starkiller to fit into current canon. Revan, not so much. You could probably make Revan fit in okay. Adam Griffin writes, I mean, Starkiller's story can certainly never be canon. It's too inconsistent with what canon is now. But with Revan, he could fit in. Adam Griffin writes, over under 65%, we see Chewbacca get his bowcaster in Solo. I'll take the under on that. I have a feeling he has it. I have a feeling that's a lifelong weapon of his. So I'm going to take the under on 65% that we see Chewbacca get it for the first time. Goku on Dragon Ball Z writes, my question is, do you think we will ever see a film based off of the Darth Plagueis novel? I feel it could add backstory to Palpatine. Your thoughts? I don't think so. And again, I have no interest in that. If they wanted to introduce Plagueis as a character, that's cool. But again, much like Boba Fett, much like the Han Solo story, I'm not interested in these. Let's flesh out the backstory. Why does everybody need their damn backstories fleshed out? Sometimes not having something is better. Sometimes a little bit of mystery is better. Why does everything have to get fleshed out? I mean, I just don't get it. You know what? That's Stormtrooper. TK421, why are you at the post? TK421. What's his story? What was he doing before the Millennium Falcon landed on the Death Star? I think we need a movie about this little boy who grew up and decided, I want to serve in the Imperial Navy, and he becomes a stormtrooper in his life story. Just, let it go. That's just way fail. And look, Goku on Dragon Ball Z, there is a bunch of people who would love to see a Plagueis movie. There are many people who would love to see that. I'm just one of them who doesn't. That's all. It's just, maybe I'm the odd guy out on that. Anthony R. writes, hey, John, from one huge Star Wars fan to another, I want to let you know that higher quality versions of the despecialized editions are coming out from Harmy. Oh, the despecialized editions are great. If you guys haven't had a chance to see, the despecialized editions of the original trilogy and the anti-cheese edits of the prequels is a must-have for any Star Wars fan. You should totally check those out. Thank you for letting me know about that, Anthony. That's really informative. And thanks for letting everybody else know about it, too. Okay, Sloth Gaming writes. I got 5 minutes left here. Sloth Gaming writes, with Snoke dead, how would you think they would do Snoke's backstory in Episode 9? With Snoke dead, it's hard to think they will do it in Episode... We don't need his backstory. I've been saying this forever. I don't give a fuck about Snoke's backstory. It's just, I mean, I've been saying this over and over again, but I'll say it again. It's just like the Emperor in the original Star Wars trilogy. We didn't know shit about the Emperor in the original Star Wars trilogy, and that was fine because we didn't need to know. We needed to know he was bad, we needed to know he was the Emperor, and we needed to know he was powerful. That's all we needed to know. That's all we needed to know. For the story to work, that is all we needed to know. We knew at some point he manipulated Anakin Skywalker, turned him into Darth Vader, but we didn't need to see how it happened. It wasn't until later that George Lucas thought we should flesh everything out and do the prequels. Anyway, but no, first of all, I don't think they will go into Snoke's backstory, nor do I think they should. I don't want them to go into Snoke's backstory. I don't care about Snoke's backstory. He served his purpose in the story. I think he served his purpose well, and now he's dead. Let's move forward. I don't need them to waste 10 minutes of screen time in Star Wars Episode 9 going into Snoke's backstory. I don't give a fuck about Snoke's backstory, so I don't think they're going to do it. I'll take the under on any number you give, and I really hope they don't. I really hope they don't do any Snoke backstory. Sarah O.D. writes, I like Dungeons & Dragons and Game of Thrones, but I and some fans would like to see female and people of color visions in Star Wars. Well, I mean, we're getting that now. I mean, clearly Rey is the central figure, much like Luke was the central figure in the original trilogy. Rey has kind of become... And it's an ensemble, yes, but Rey is the central figure. Rogue One was centered on a female character. Finn is one of the major characters here. And I won't be surprised at all if they actually end up giving Finn his own movie at some point. So, I mean, and what you're saying is, like, you like Dungeons & Dragons, you like Game of Thrones, but I and some fans would like to see, well, who's to say that those are mutually exclusive terms? Like, who's to say we can't get, like, out of these new, like, Game of Thrones creators' stories, that we can't get some of them that are people of color. We can't get some of them that are led by women, that we can't get some of them that are led by white dudes. I mean, just because they're going to do one thing, that doesn't mean it excludes something else. It is an and both situation, not an either-or situation. At least that's how I see it. Thanks a lot for the question, Sarah. Fernando Aguilera writes, hey, John, just cut the cord. Best thing I did in a while. I can't live without DVR, so I will get a TiVo. Thanks for your advice. And yeah, I've been a cord cutter for about 7 or 8 years now. Since I moved to LA, the first thing I did when I moved to LA, I made the decision not to get a cable service, and I just bought this brand new device called a Roku. And that became my entertainment hub, that and the internet. I have not had cable ever since, and I do not regret it at all. So congratulations on cutting that cord. Last 3 questions. Anthony writes, Canto Bight was too Earth-like for Star Wars, in my opinion. The nightclub and diner from the prequels felt more normal to me. It looks like Solo be more modern. Do you modern works better in spin-offs? Well, I mean, look, I think you have to give every world and every environment that you're in its own unique fingerprint, its own unique feel. For Canto Bight, I keep on wanting to say Canto Bright for some reason. For Canto Bight, I thought the look of the place, in my opinion anyway, I thought the look of the place was fine. And it did exude what Rose was talking about. People getting rich off the suffering of everybody else in the universe. And the look and the design of it felt fine to me. It was also, I've never seen anything else in Star Wars look like that, and that's important, right? Pardon me. So if you're going to make every environment you're in look unique, that means eventually some of those environments will feel a little Earth-like. That's inevitable. That's going to happen. The question to me is, does it work? Does the design work for the narrative you're telling there? And while I do not like the Canto Bight scenes at all, I will say that from my point of view, at least at any rate, that the design of the city did seem to serve the narrative they were telling there, which is, of course, Rose's feelings about, you know, a place that gets so wealthy off of the suffering of other people. In that sense, it kind of felt right to me. But I can totally see where you're coming from at the same time. I just kind of feel like similarities to what our normal would be is okay from time to time. If you're always making something different, eventually something's going to look similar to our own. So on that level, I really don't have a problem with it. Let's see. Sean writes, huge fan. Can't stop thinking about Justice League. I grew up on Batman 1989 and DC ever since, although Marvel are doing good. What if Nolan directed Justice League? Sorry, Sean, this is Star Wars Talk Tuesday. All we do, we just take Star Wars questions today. But come back on Friday for the Weekly Hero if you like, or ask that question again on the John Campea Show. Michael Lewis Ryan writes, Qui-Gon film? Again, I certainly hope not. I certainly hope not. I'm over going backwards. I don't need to go backwards. I want to go forward. New stories, new characters. We don't need to flesh everything out. And that's how I feel. I know there's a lot of you who feel different. And if they do it, I'll be super happy for you guys that want that stuff. I'll celebrate that with you. But if you're going to ask me, I don't want it. I really don't. I want to see them keep moving forward and giving us new stories to tell. But that's just my opinion. All right, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of Star Wars Talk Tuesdays, the best day of the week. I have so much fun on this show just talking Star Wars with you guys. Thank you for being here and being a part of this, guy. Remember, we are all Star Wars fans. Whether you love The Last Jedi, hate The Last Jedi, love the prequels, hate the prequels, whatever, we're all Star Wars fans. So when we debate and discuss things, let's treat each other civilly. And let's be good to each other, realizing we're on the same team. And we want to encourage Star Wars fandom across the galaxy. That is the ultimate goal of being a healthy fan and not a toxic fan. Anyway, guys, that will do it for me. Make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click the thumbs up button. Leave a thought or comment in the comments area below. Check out my Patreon campaign page. And until next time, guys, thanks so much for being here. My name's John Campea. And until the next video, may the Force be with you.